Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 6 questions in 9 minutes because leaders know how to be concise. We'll go ahead and get started with our guest today. First question, in a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, my name is Deb North, and I own 2 different companies. I've owned True North Consulting, which is a search and staffing firm for almost 10 years, and I just launched Yes Athletics last year.
Fantastic. Question number 2, what's the best thing about working with the team?
I'm a big believer in many hands make light work. So a lot of times you can be a lot more productive if you're surrounding yourself with really bright, competent people, and you can get a lot more done and accomplish a lot more working as a team.
Yeah, I like that. I completely agree. Many hands do make light work. So I always like it when a lot of people show up to something. So.
Right. Yes, for sure.
Question number 3, I hear from other leaders of teams that it can be a challenge to get team members engaged. Tell us your thoughts.
You know, I think that's an interesting, relevant question, especially right now, because I mean, everybody's so disconnected, and you know, there has been companies with distributed workforce for a while, but it's new to a lot of places, and you know, I think it just takes you can't connect with people at the water fountain or in the break room. I mean, you have to really make a conscious effort to check in on people and talk to them and communicate with them and lay out your expectations, and so it just takes showing people that you care and checking in on them and letting them know that you are still on the same team, even though you're distributed around a city or the United States for that matter.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. I really like what you said about showing that you care, because that means a lot to a lot of people, especially in current conditions. So that's
right.
a great comment. Question number 4, what other piece of advice do you have for leaders of teams?
You know, one thing, you know, as an early manager, as a young manager, I didn't have a lot of empathy. I think one thing about having kids is that it gives you a lot of empathy because, you know, when you're young and in your 20s and you haven't been through that life experience yet, you just don't have as much understanding for being late for work and things like that. And I think it takes walking in those shoes and understanding that you could be walking out the door and a baby spits up on you and you have to go change your clothes, and that can make you late, or daycare issues, which makes you have to leave early. And that's one great thing. I work in the technology space in my search firm. So technology has made it amazing for people to be able to work remote and work from home. And it gives people a lot more flexibility, which makes them a lot happier because they can accomplish, they can feel like they're successful at home and at work. So I think the biggest thing, my piece of advice, you know, if I was to tell my younger self, I would say be more empathetic, you know, be more understanding. Because I think, you know, after I had kids, I was a better manager. I was more understanding. I was more empathetic. I was more fun, I think.
Well, yeah, you make a great comment that I can relate to almost exactly, because my empathy increased after we had our kids, and you started, and my wife has been a trooper and has been a great mom and has taken care of most of those efforts there, but nonetheless, I still help out if she's not feeling well or the kid. We had twins, and so we were trying.
Oh my goodness! Wow, that's
both of them. So it was a tag team effort. Both of us.
Yeah, that's man-to-man defense.
That's right. That's right. That's
sure.
I love your comment about just trying your best to put yourself in the other person's shoes a little bit and having that empathy for where they're at. That's a great comment.
Right.
Question number 5. What other successful leaders of teams would you like to recognize that have had a positive influence in your life?
So my first boss, I started waiting tables when I was 15 years old. I had to make the decision, either I, you know, got a car and went to college, or I had fun in high school or whatever. And so I started waiting tables at a young age. And his name is Jim Martino. He owns the Mall Deli in Pittsburgh, Kansas. We'll give him a shout out. But here you are, you know, you're waiting tables, and it seems like a really standard job. You know, you go to the table, you take the order, you deliver the food. But he encouraged us to think of it like your own business. So your section was your own business, and that's how you made your tip. So you did your best job for those 10 tables or whatever was in your section. So it kind of started that whole think like an owner mindset. Then my first job out of college, I worked for the Koch brothers in Wichita, Kansas. And they really encourage people to think like owners also, and it's all about continuous process improvement. So there's always a better way to do something, and I think through those thought processes, but it really gives you a lot of humility to step back and say, maybe what I'm doing isn't the best way to do this. But that culture really encouraged people to step up and say, wait. I know we've done this for like this for 20 years, but maybe there's a better way to do it. And you see a lot of companies get very set in their ways and don't challenge the status quo. And so I think that's the only way to keep innovating and improving is continuing to improve and identify better ways to do that. And kind of comes back to the team. I mean, if you hire and surround yourself with really bright people, they are going to think of things that maybe you hadn't thought of. So the other one I will point out is when I first got in this business, I worked for a guy named Jim Williams, and his famous quote was, if you fail to plan, you can plan to fail. So because of him, I am a stickler about having a plan and knowing what I'm going to do, and coming to work, you do it the night before, so when you show up at work, you're ready to roll. So those are my 3 people I will give a shout out to that I learned a lot from.
That's great. Thank you for recognizing them. Last question, and you may have kind of started to answer it a little bit, but tell us about your first job.
Well, my first actual job was waiting tables in high school, and then I waited tables all through college. But it kind of, I would consider myself outgoing, and I'm in a sales type role now. I think as an entrepreneur, you're always in a sales role, so you learn a lot from that. My first job out of college was at Coke, and the role I was in was helping make sure that parcels of land, everyone got paid correctly. So they would gather the oil, and I had to make sure that the royalty owners and the investors in that particular well were paid according to what was produced from that well. Well, one thing I learned, I mean, it kind of comes back to humility, is I didn't like that job, and it's because I wasn't good at that job. So I needed to find what I was really good at. And so I landed in recruiting and staffing, and which has a people element and a sales element, and it's not down in the weeds and the details and digging through files and paperwork. And so everything's always a learning experience. So that was what I learned from my first jobs.
That's a great experience. And it's, I've heard this several times from other guests that the first job is a very important job, because you learn one of 2 things. Either you learn what you're going to do or what you're not going to do.
Right.
People find out rather quickly whether that's something that they're going to enjoy doing for the rest of their lives.
Well, it's funny because in my search and staffing business, I mean, you talk to people, and I mean, you really don't necessarily use your degree until you're 25, 26. That's kind of when you figure out. So, you talk to I say kids, anyone in their 40s a kid at this point, right? But and they're holding out for that great job. It's like, just jump in, just do something and learn from it. And it may not be the right thing, but it's not going to be till you're 25 or 26 when you figure out, when you take the job digging through files and doing detail work, to realize that that's not what you're good at and that's not what you want to do. So yeah, sometimes you just have to jump in and learn.
Great advice, because you're right. We can stymie ourselves by trying to think through it too much, when really all we do is just jump in and figure it out as we go. So,
right.
Deb, thank you so much for being on the podcast. How can people find you?
Well, my new business I just launched is Yes Athletics. It's kind of funny because it's all about jumping in and saying yes to brave things. My daughter's a wrestler, and we discovered that there's no wrestling shoes for girls. So we've developed wrestling shoes. And so if you know any female wrestlers, we're big cheerleaders of any girl who does non-traditional girl sports. So you can find us at yesathleticsusa.com, and we're also on all the social media channels, from YouTube to Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. My search firm, I specialize in STEM careers. Again, I'm very passionate about encouraging women and girls to get into STEM. Again, it's math and science, and sometimes it's not seen as cool or traditional female-directed careers. So, but I work with anybody, typically manager or above, in IT and engineering, and that search firm is truenorthkc.com. So K as in Kansas, C as in city, and we do have a nationwide reach. So depending on where you're at in the United States, there could be jobs streaming from my team of virtual recruiters around the nation. that have other opportunities. So love to talk to you.
That sounds great. Thank you for sharing that information.
Yeah.
This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, you can go to teamengagementpodcast.com and download our engagement booster tip sheet. Give you some ideas on how to boost engagement from hiring all the way to the time when you have to part ways with the employee. Again, that's teamengagementpodcast.com. Thanks so much for joining us today, and have a great day.
Thank you so much.